So, hello there, and welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I am reviewing the new Taika Waititi film, Next Goal Wins. But just before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to your podcast on Spotify, well, you are in luck, as you can listen to this podcast on Spotify at Night of the Movies on that platform, and if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also listen to the podcast, or then you can also watch this podcast, should I say, on YouTube, at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and please leave me with some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into it, shall we? Next Goal Wins. So this is a new Taika Waititi film, and if you're familiar with that name, he also previously co-directed What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, with Jermaine Clements, and they both starred in that film, and at the same time, Taika Waititi has also solely directed Hunt for the Wilder People, which I absolutely love. He directed Jojo Rabbit, which came out in 2019, which I must admit I wasn't the biggest on. I didn't hate that film, but tonally it was just all over the place. And then he also directed Thor Ragnarok, which everybody seemed to love, and I seem to be the only person in the world who didn't like that film. I admired parts, but it just wasn't for me. And most recently, last year, he directed Thor, Love and Thunder. And this is his new film. And in the UK, it doesn't come out for a couple of weeks. It's already out in America, but it isn't out in the UK till the end of this month, till the 29th of December. So you may be watching or listening to this podcast in the UK, going, how are you reviewing this film then? Well, the simple answer is I got to the preview screening. I didn't really know what film I was going in for. It's called a screen unseen. They do these at the Odeon every now and then. I think they do a similar kind of screening at Cineworld as well, and I wouldn't be surprised to do it at the View. And anyway, yeah, so it was a screen unseen at the Odeon. Didn't know what film I was going in for. Thought it could be Godzilla Minus One or Wonka, but no, it ended up being Next Goal Wins. And the film stars Michael Fassbender in the leading role, alongside small roles from Elizabeth Moss, Will Arnett, Luke Hemsworth, Rhys Darby, and Taika Waititi himself. And the Google plot synopsis for the film goes as follows. With the 2014 World Cup qualifiers approaching, down on his luck, coach Thomas Rongen, apologies for mispronouncing his name, he's played by Michael Fassbender in the film, tries to turn the American Samoa soccer team into winners. And that's basically everything you need to know about the film before you see it. And honestly, I did not like this film. I thought it was actually quite bad. It has its moments, and I'm not saying it's awful. It was okay to watch. It's got nothing too harmful in there. There are some interesting parts of the film. It has a nice heart. Michael Fassbender is okay in the film. And the footballers that you watch are all likeable. The footballers and the characters that you meet in the film are all likeable. And you can see that the film, you get the feeling that the film has the best intentions. That all being said, it is self-indulgent, it is unfunny, and it is uninspired, and it's not as uplifting as it should be. It's an underdog story about this football team who is just absolutely terrible, and all Michael Fassbender has to do is take them to the 2014 World Cup qualifiers and, try and get them to score a goal. That's what he has to do, and it's a simple plot, but I often think the simplest of plots can be the most effective. But the problem is here is I didn't care about anything going on in the film. It was very poorly written, it was very badly directed, and nothing in the film was that entertaining to watch. I mean, the film is not an awful watch. I wasn't sitting there with my head in my hand, literally wanting to leave the cinema like I have done with the likes of, I don't know, The Meg 2, The Trench early this year. But at the same time, though, it just didn't give me a reason to care, which is an odd thing to say about a Taika Waititi film. Just earlier in this podcast, I was listening off his films, and although I don't love his films, I can see why some people do. I'm not the biggest fan of Taika Waititi, I've got to admit, but at the same time, though, I get why people like him, and I'm happy that people like him. I'm not one of those incels online who saw, Thor: Love and Thunder and thought, okay, that's the end of Taika Waititi forever. No, I'll always give Taika Waititi a chance. He made Hunt for the Wilder People, which is a brilliant film, and I also really enjoyed What We Do in the Shadows, which he co-directed. But at the same time, though, it's got to the point now where I think Taika Waititi is just... he's trying to make his films too funny. And I don't think the comedy in this film works at all. There was a couple moments when I smiled and I thought, oh, I can understand why someone may think that's funny. And there were people in my cinema who laughed at a couple of jokes. But so much of the comedy has this stale delivery in the film and is not that funny. I wasn't sure whether I was meant to laugh in certain moments. And not in a good way there. I really wasn't sure whether that was meant to be funny in certain moments, or whether it was meant to be serious, or whether it was meant to be this quite profound scene, or whether we were meant to dislike Michael Fassbender's character in that scene, but actually find him quite funny in the next scene. I didn't get what I was meant to find funny. And Taika Waititi himself has a very small role in the film, like he does in most of his films. In the Thor films that he directed, he played Korg. He was actually one of the main stars of What We Do in the Shadows. He was in Hunt for the Wilder People. I don't remember him too well in that film, but I do remember he was in that. And in Jojo Rabbit, he played Hitler. So he actually has cameos or small roles in all of his films, and he has a small role in this film too. But it's so self-indulgent. He shows up doing this. He shows up with this funny facial expression, although it's not funny. It just comes across as smug, and you're watching him go, what are you trying to do here? How are you trying to make us laugh? How are you trying to make us laugh? He shows up at the start of the film and he acts as this kind of narrator, although he doesn't narrate the rest of the film, so he's not really the narrator. But he basically gives you the introduction to the film. Then he shows up and you're like, really? You're doing that? And he has a very brief appearance later on in the film that just, again, comes across as smug. And I felt like, as a viewer, meant to sit there and go, oh, it's Taika Waititi. We could just let him do this because it's Taika Waititi and he's a funny film director and he's, is also quite a comedic actor. But in actuality, it wasn't funny. Even the people who laughed at other parts of the film in my cinema didn't find him funny when he showed up. I don't know what he was going for with his performance. And his performance isn't a big part of the film, but it was a part of the film. I mean, it's at the very start of the film when he comes on screen and does that performance. I was sitting there going, oh no, it's not, it's going to be one of those sort of films, isn't it? That's what I was there thinking. And that's what it really was, because I don't understand why the story was told in this way. Why I was meant to care about anything going on. The film didn't make me care about anything going on. You don't get to know the footballers well enough. You get to know a couple of things about Michael Fassbender's character, but not enough for you to actually really care about him that much or get invested in his story. At the same time, the film doesn't have that sharp, witty direction that you should have in a comedy like this. And the film is like an hour and 45 minutes long. It may just be under that runtime, and it feels longer. It feels almost... it feels almost 3 hours. It just went on and on and on and on. It feels much longer than it actually is. It doesn't have that sharp direction that you need in a comedy. I spoke about Bottoms, which is a great comedy which came out earlier this year, and that had this sharp, witty direction to it, which made it really entertaining. Not only in the comedy aspects of that film, but also in the direction, and it was a well-written film. And that is an example of a comedy earlier this year which knows what it is doing and turns out to be a really fantastic comedy. This, you can tell it wants to be a comedy, but it doesn't have that sharp direction. Scenes and certain shots linger on for too long, and at the same time, there isn't any really... There just doesn't feel like there's much direction going on. It's a badly directed film, which is an odd thing to say for Taika Waititi because he is an Academy Award winning filmmaker. I mean, he didn't win an Academy Award for directing. I'm pretty sure he won an Academy Award for writing for Jojo Rabbit. But at the same time, though, he has won an Academy Award, and it feels like here he is phoning in the direction. It's not well made. It feels like everybody involved in the film, everybody on screen that you're watching, is having a fun holiday whilst making this film. That's what it feels like. There's not anything for you to really get engaged in, whether it's in the direction, whether it's in the writing, which is surprisingly bad, or whether it's in the comedy or the story, because it's a very predictable story. You know where it's going to go. And it's also a story I've seen done better elsewhere, which I'll get onto a bit later in this review. Also, the performances are not great. I love Michael Fassbender. He was so good in The Killer earlier this year, which is now streaming on Netflix, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't already watched it. It's really, really good. The new David Fincher film, and he is phenomenal in it. I loved him as the young Magneto in X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past and the other X-Men prequel movies he was in. I mean, there's other examples I can't think of the top of my head right now. Yeah, Inglourious Basterds, that's another one. I was thinking, was he actually in Inglourious Basterds? And then I was thinking, oh yeah, he's in the most famous scene in Inglourious Basterds. Yeah, he is a phenomenal actor. And I don't think he's bad in this film. I'm not saying that. But I think he's miscast. I think if somebody else had that role, they would have given a better performance. I don't think Michael Fassbender can do comedy. At least he can't do comedy in this film. I don't think he knows how to do Taika Waititi comedy. In fact, if Taika Waititi was in the leading role, and actually, you know, if he played the main character and actually took it more seriously, I think it could have worked. But he isn't, and you have Michael Fassbender instead. And again, I love Michael Fassbender, and I can't wait to what he does next. But I think he's miscast in this film. I think he's miscast. And you have some supporting performances from the likes of Will Arnett and Elizabeth Moss, which I've already spoken about. Will Arnett is somebody I love in Arrested Development. He plays Job. Seems one of the best comedy television characters ever. I also love him as the voice of the Lego Batman in the Lego movies, whether it's the Lego movie or whether it's the Lego Batman film. He's so good as the voice of Lego Batman. And yeah, I really like Will Arnett. I really also enjoy the podcast he does with Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes. What's it called? Smartless. I really love that podcast. That being said, I did not like his performance in this film, and I did not like his character. In fact, his character was just horrible, and every single time Will Arnett was on screen in the film, he's not in this film loads, but at the same time, though, it's just one of those things where, you know, it's another problem which just builds on all the other problems you have with this film. Builds on all the other problems I had with this film. Every single time Will Arnett is on screen, I just hated him. I just hated that character. Didn't really like Will Arnett's performance. Didn't really get the point of that character. And just, yeah, what was Will Arnett doing in this film? I really like Will Arnett, but why? Why was he in this film? And then Elizabeth Moss doesn't really feel like she has much invested in this film. She seems like she's having a good time whilst in this film. And she seems like she's enjoying working with the likes of Michael Fassbender, Will Arnett, and Taika Waititi, who obviously directed the film. But at the same time, though, yeah, her performance isn't great. I didn't think she was that good in the film. When Luke Hemsworth pops up, you know, one of the Hemsworth brothers, which is expected because Luke Hemsworth, I'm pretty sure he had a cameo in one of Taika Waititi's Thor films. He pops up in there. Not really sure why, and Rhys Darby pops up. I actually like Rhys Darby in this film, and he's been in all the Taika Waititi films as well. You know, he played, what was it, the Swearwolf in What We Do in the Shadows, which is really funny in that film. Nothing compares to the Swearwolf in this film, no. But anyway, yeah, Rhys Darby pops up. He's not bad, but I didn't really care about any of the characters or any of the performances. None of them were that good in my opinion. And it's just really not that well written. The film doesn't give you a reason to care about these characters. And although Taika Waititi didn't solely direct the script, although he didn't solely write the script, he did co-write it. And you do feel that it is a Taika Waititi film, but for the wrong reasons. It's Taika Waititi unleashed. It doesn't feel like he had a producer, behind us going, cut down on this, make this shot last a little less longer. Don't include that comedic moment because it's not actually that funny. It doesn't feel like anybody's telling him what to do, and sometimes you need that. And I think you really need that on a director like Taika Waititi. I think that's why so many people loved Thor Ragnarok. I didn't, but again, I can understand why people did. And here, it feels like he was given a budget to make this film, and then he just went off and did it. They had a nice, fun holiday whilst they were making the film, and then he came back and realised, oh, actually, this isn't as good as I thought it would turn out to be. But people probably like it because it's me, and I'm Taika Waititi, and I'm funny, but actually, it just comes across, his comedy in the film just comes across as self-indulgent, smug, and none of it really is that funny. Yeah, it is not a memorable film. And here is the biggest problem I had with the film. Ted Lasso exists. And here's what I mean by that. Ted Lasso has a very similar story to Next Go Wins when you think about it. I mean, it's not the same story. They are two different stories, but they're the same type of stories. A football coach coming in to, coach a football team that is really not doing well whatsoever, and then he makes them do better. The football coach ultimately makes them do better, even though they might not fully succeed. Ted Lasso and Next Go Wins both have similar type of stories. They both have similar stories in terms of what they're about. And the thing is, Ted Lasso is far superior because you get to spend time with these characters. You get to know these footballers. You get to know the coaches. You get to know all the characters in the show. The owner of the football club. The past owner of the football club in Ted Lasso, who's a nasty piece of work. You get to know all these characters, and you get to follow their journeys. You get to develop alongside with them, and you get to see them at their highest moments, and you do feel uplifted in the moments you're meant to. And at the same time, there are also some emotional and moving moments in Ted Lasso, which you also feel as well, because it's a far superior piece of work, because the writing there, and it is a very funny show when it wants to be, but it's also very moving, and you don't have any of that with Next Go Wins. And yes, Ted Lasso did have 3 seasons of television. It is a television show, and Next Go Wins is a film. But at the same time, though, I was watching this. I can't lie, I was watching this and I was thinking, Ted Lasso's just done this story better. If I want to watch a film, or not a film, but if I want to watch something about an underdog story surrounding some footballers who go from nothing to, almost greatness, then I'm going to watch Ted Lasso. I'm not going to watch Next Go Wins because it doesn't have any of that comedy. It doesn't have any of that uplifting feel that it really should do. And it's not nearly as tight and well directed and sharp as an episode of Ted Lasso is. The latest season of Ted Lasso, the 3rd season, I thought it was a weaker season, but I still really liked it. Episodes in that season, some of them lasted over an hour. And the thing is, that is almost the length of a full-length feature film. And when you watch those episodes, I still contend that a lot of the episodes in the 3rd season of Ted Lasso are well directed and are sharp and are well written and do have those really funny moments and those quite moving moments. And the thing is, Next Go Wins is only about 40 minutes longer than an episode of Ted Lasso Season 3. And it isn't that well directed, though. It isn't as sharp, and you don't get to know about these characters that much. The film just doesn't give you a reason to care. And that's the biggest thing. Ted Lasso, in the very first episode, I rewatched the very first episode of Ted Lasso not too long ago now. And, in the very first episode of Ted Lasso, you're given a reason to care about all the characters. You're not given a reason to care about any of the characters, really, in Next Go Wins. I mean, You sort of are with Michael Fassbender's character towards the end, but that felt forced, and I also don't think it really worked that well. It came out of nowhere, and it didn't really fit in with Michael Fassbender's characterization, with his character. So yeah, Ted Lasso exists, and that's a big problem with this film because it's done the story better. It's done this type of story better, and furthermore, the football in Ted Lasso looks realistic. You actually believe that you are following footballers who are playing football. It works, and you believe in all the football. And I'm not someone who cares about football whatsoever. I have no interest in it whatsoever. And yet I watch Ted Lasso and I get invested in all the football because of how real it feels, because of all the story built surrounding it, and because it just works in that show. Here, the football doesn't work. In Next Goal Wins, the football doesn't look realistic enough. And you don't get enough time with the characters, with the footballers playing football. I was sat there going, yeah, I just don't care about any of this. And you're not really told much about their situation, about the characters' situation in Next Goal Wins. I mean, you're told a little bit about it at the start of the film, but not enough for you to really go, oh, so I can understand how this character's feeling, I can understand where this character's heads are, I can understand where this character's head, why is this football acting this sort of way. There isn't any of that. It feels like most of the football is just there for comedy. That's really it. I mean, there's one footballer which you focus on quite a lot called Gia, and I liked that storyline, but at the same time, I couldn't get invested in the whole football aspect of the film because it just didn't feel real enough. I think Ted Lasso really cracked the football side of everything really, really well. Next Goal Wins does not. The football does not look real enough, and you don't get invested enough, and so by the time you get to the third act and you get to the big football game, I was sat there going, yep, I already know where this is going to go. And the football for me just doesn't look real enough. And that sounds like it's a small thing. But when it's a football comedy, like Next Goal Wins is, it's actually quite a big thing. And tell you what, the whole film just felt like I was being hit in the head by a football. It is just bad. I wouldn't say it's awful, because I didn't hate watching this film. You know, me hating this film would involve me getting emotionally engaged in it, and I never ever did. But at the same time, I know Taika Waititi can do better, and here it really feels like he's just left the camera going on certain moments, and that hasn't really given much direction to what's going on, and he's phoned it in, and it's really not that well made. It's not a good film. I really wish I came out of it and went, you know what, that was surprisingly good. I'm not saying it was brilliant, but I enjoyed it more than I expected to, particularly with Taika Waititi, who I'm not the biggest fan of. But I didn't. In fact, it just cemented my opinion that Taika Waititi, his films just don't work for me for the most part. I like Hunt for the Wilder People. I really, really like that film. And I enjoy the What We Do in the Shadows movie, but I don't know. Maybe I just don't like him as a director, which is completely fine. It's all subjective, and I should also say that if you have seen Next Goal Wins and you enjoyed it, that's great. I really don't want to take anything away from you, because I can see why people would enjoy this film, and there were people in my cinema who were laughing at it, so they were getting some enjoyment out of it, clearly. So yeah, I can understand why some people like it, and if you're watching or listening to this podcast today and you actually really enjoyed Next Goal Wins, then that is great, and I'm really, really happy for you. But for me, as I've already said, the film just felt like I was being hit on the head by football. It was self-indulgent. It was almost entirely unfunny. I mean, I didn't laugh at all, but I smiled at a couple of moments, I will say that, but it's mostly entirely unfunny, and it's an uninspired football-less comedy with no emotional engagement or investment. I don't know. This film just wasn't for me. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Next Goal Wins. I'm going to say it's a... You know what? I'm feeling a bit mean today. I'm going to say it's a 2 out of 10. I'm giving it a 2 out of 10 because that's a low rating. And that sounds like I hated it. But in actuality, I didn't hate it. I just don't think I hated it. Give me a couple of weeks and actually I might look back on this film and go, you know what, that was absolutely awful. But as of right now, as of the morning after I saw it, I didn't hate it. But at the same time, the more I think about it, the more it annoys me. You know, it had so many parts to it which could have been great, and every frame of this film is screaming good intentions, and you sit there and you want the film to be good, you know, but it's just not. It's just not a good film. And I really think Taika Waititi with his next film needs to, you know, give himself some time, write a good script, and then give himself some time after he's done shooting the film to do some more polishing, to sharpen it up. I mean, there's some rumours out there that he's directing a Star Wars movie. If that's true, I am worried. Because I'm a big Star Wars fan. Look at my t-shirts today, look at the stuff behind me. And if he's directing a Star Wars movie, and if that's his next movie, after Next Goal Wins, I am not... I'd be lying if I said I was excited for his Star Wars movie. Let's just say that. As what he said, this film is just not for me. So much of the comedy just feels self-indulgent. The whole film feels self-indulgent. It just feels like Taika Waititi let off on a leash with no one telling him what to do or no one telling this doesn't actually work too well. It just feels like he's got to make the film he wants and not in a good way. Michael Fassbender feels miscast even though he's okay in the film. It has its moments. There were some good parts to it, but you just don't care enough. The film doesn't give you a reason to care, and it's very unengaging. It's told, the storytelling is not done in a compelling fashion whatsoever, and you know what? It feels like one of those films you'll see on Netflix in the next couple of months. You'll probably watch on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon. You watch it, you might enjoy it, but then as soon as it's finished, you'll instantly forget about it. That's the sort of film it feels like. It is not good, and I wouldn't recommend it. But then again, I'm not a Taika Waititi fan, so that might be why the film didn't work for me. That being said, it's unfunny, it's uninspired, it's not as uplifting as it should be, and it's just a bad film. And so, all in all, as I've already said, I'm going to say once more that Next Goal Wins. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that is it for the podcast for today. So if you have seen Next Goal Wins, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Maybe you loved the film, and as I've already said, if you did, that's great. I don't want to take anything away from you. I love it, and I really, really mean this. I love it when someone likes or even loves a film more than I do. I think that's great. And if you got more out of this film than I did, that is awesome. And if that's the case, please let me know why in the comment section below. So yeah, whatever your thoughts are on the Next Goal Wins, please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As I already said, thank you guys for watching or listening to the podcast, and I suppose this is it. So I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye!